She wasn't looking for anything special that day. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where time moves slowly and the internet feels like a window to other people's lives. She had a cup of coffee in her hand and was scrolling through local ads, not really searching for anything. But then a strange listing caught her eye. It read, "Tiny house for sale, $500, must move soon." She blinked and read it again, thinking it had to be a mistake. Houses didn't sell for $500, not even old broken ones. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone had left out a few zeros. Still, something about the ad felt genuine. There was only one photo, a small weathered house with peeling blue paint and a crooked porch. The description was short. Old small house on my land. Needs work. Buyer must handle removal. $500 or best offer. Curiosity tugged at her. She wasn't rich, not even close, but she had always loved old things. Things with stories behind them. She lived in a small rented apartment in town, teaching part-time and spending her free hours fixing up thrifted furniture. She had dreamed of owning her own place one day. Something simple, something she could make her own. She decided to message the seller. An older man replied. He said the house was still available and that he'd be happy if someone would just take it away. He mentioned it had been sitting empty for years on the back of his property and that it once belonged to a quiet man who kept to himself. That only made her more curious. 2 days later, she drove out to see it. The drive took her past long stretches of farmland, golden fields, and broken fences. When she finally turned onto a dirt road that led to the property, she saw the house sitting by itself at the edge of a grove. It was smaller than she imagined, maybe the size of a single-car garage. The roof sagged a little and weeds had grown up through the porch steps. Still, something about it felt peaceful. The old man came out to meet her. He wore a faded cap and moved slowly, leaning on a cane. "You're the one who called about the little house?" he asked. She nodded. He led her across the field. The boards creaked under their feet as they stepped inside. Dust floated through the sunlight that came in from the broken windows. The air smelled faintly of cedar and something old. Not unpleasant, just forgotten. Inside, there wasn't much. A tiny kitchen sink, an empty shelf, a small wood stove in the corner. The walls had layers of faded wallpaper curling at the edges. "It's been empty for decades," the man said. "The fellow who built it lived here alone. Never caused trouble. One day he was just gone. Left everything behind." She asked if anyone had gone through the place since then. He shook his head. "Not really. A few kids snuck in over the years. But it's mostly been left alone." She looked around again. The floorboards were uneven but solid. The windows could be fixed. The roof would need work, sure, but she had seen worse. And the price? Well, $500 barely bought a new fridge these days. She turned to the man. "I'll take it." He seemed surprised. "You sure?" "It's not much of a house, I'm sure," she said, smiling. "I think it deserves another chance." He chuckled softly. "Then it's yours. Just promise me you'll take care of it," she promised. Bringing the tiny house home wasn't easy. She had to rent a flatbed trailer, find a few friends willing to help, and spend nearly an entire weekend preparing it for transport. They reinforced the frame and tied it down carefully. By the time it reached her small plot of land outside town, the sun was setting, painting the house in warm orange light. It looked tired but still proud, like it had been waiting years for someone to see it again. The next few days were filled with cleaning. She scrubbed away layers of grime, swept out cobwebs, and removed piles of old newspapers from the corners. Beneath the dust, the wood still had color and strength. The house felt different than any place she'd been before, not haunted, but heavy with memory. She found little things as she worked: an old teacup with a chipped rim, a set of nails and a rusted tin, and a small notebook half buried under a loose floorboard. The pages were mostly blank except for a few faint pencil marks, sketches of trees, hands, and faces. The drawings were careful, almost gentle, as if the artist had loved the quiet moments more than anything. She wondered who had lived there. That night, sitting on the porch steps with a flashlight, she flipped through the notebook again. At the back, a single line of writing caught her eye. "Beauty is not gone, only hidden." She read it twice, thinking about what that meant. The next morning, she called her sister to tell her about the house. "You bought a house for $500? Her sister said, laughing. "You know that's either the best deal in the world or the start of a horror story, right?" She laughed too. "I'll take my chances," her sister sighed. Just be careful, okay? Old houses can surprise you. I hope so, she said quietly. Days turned into weeks as she worked on the little home. She learned how to sand wood floors, patch cracks, and seal gaps around the windows. Each repair felt like uncovering a small secret. Underneath one layer of wallpaper, she found another. Bright floral patterns from what looked like the 1950s. Under that, she discovered pencil sketches directly on the wall, outlines of birds, trees, and faces she couldn't quite make out. They were beautiful in a rough way, like someone had been practicing art right on the walls of their home. She took photos and posted them online, where a few friends encouraged her to keep sharing the progress. Some even sent her small donations for supplies inspired by the project. People loved seeing something broken come back to life. One afternoon, while peeling wallpaper near the window, she noticed something odd carved into the wooden frame, a set of initials followed by a date. AL 1953. She ran her fingers over the letters. They were neat, precise, carved with care. Whoever AL was, they must have built or owned the house back then. She wondered if the notebook she found belonged to them. That night, she looked up local records trying to find anything about the house's history. There wasn't much, just a vague record of an Arthur Lind listed in a census from the 1950s. But after that, nothing. No family, no death certificate, no trace. She felt a chill of curiosity. Maybe he'd simply moved away. Maybe he'd passed quietly and been forgotten. But maybe, she thought, there was more to it. As summer deepened, she spent longer hours in the house painting walls and repairing trim. The more time she spent there, the more connected she felt, not just to the space but to whoever had once called it home. She sometimes spoke aloud while she worked, thanking the old craftsman for building such a strong little place. It felt strange at first, but comforting too. Neighbors began stopping by, curious about the woman who bought the $500 house. Most of them smiled politely and shook their heads in disbelief. One older neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Clark, told her she remembered hearing about the man who used to live there. He was a painter, I think, Mrs. Clark said. Kept to himself. Some folks said he had a studio under the house, but no one ever saw it. Under the house? She asked, surprised. That's what I heard, Mrs. Clark said, shrugging. Could be just gossip. But he was a kind soul, they say. Always sitting outside at dusk, sketching the hills. After Mrs. Clark left, she couldn't stop thinking about that. A studio under the house. She crouched near the porch later that evening and peeked under the wooden steps. There was a narrow crawl space, dark and full of dirt, but she didn't see anything unusual. Still, the idea lingered in her mind. Maybe someday, when she was done fixing everything above ground, she'd take a closer look beneath it. That night, as the crickets sang outside and the air smelled of fresh paint and sawdust, she sat inside the tiny house with a small lamp glowing beside her. She looked around. The walls still rough, the floor half-sanded, tools scattered everywhere. But despite the mess, she felt a deep peace she hadn't felt in years. The house was starting to breathe again. It was as if, piece by piece, it was revealing who it once was, and perhaps who she was becoming too. She didn't know that beneath her feet, hidden deep under the floor, something waited. Something that had been untouched for more than 70 years. And soon her $500 house would prove to be worth far more than she could ever imagine. The mornings had become her favorite time. The air was cool, and the sunlight came through the windows in long, soft lines that made the dust sparkle like tiny stars. Every day she found something new to fix, and with each repair, the house started to feel more alive. But ever since that conversation with the old neighbor, one thought kept circling her mind. The story about the painter who might have had a studio beneath the house. It was a strange idea, but it wouldn't leave her. One afternoon, after finishing a coat of white paint on the walls, she decided to take another look under the floor. The crawl space beneath the porch had always made her uneasy. It was dark and narrow, and the dirt smelled damp and old. Still, curiosity got the better of her. She tied her hair back, grabbed a flashlight, and crouched down. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing a mess of cobwebs, stones, and wooden beams. Nothing seemed unusual at first, just the usual signs of time and neglect. But then she noticed something. Toward the back, under one of the main floor supports, a section of the dirt looked smoother, as if it had been disturbed and then covered again. Her heartbeat quickened. She crawled forward carefully, brushing away dust. The wooden planks above her creaked faintly. She reached out and tapped the ground. It sounded hollow. That was strange. She pressed her palm against the spot and felt a faint vibration. Not from sound, but from the texture beneath. It wasn't all dirt. It felt like metal. She pulled back quickly, sitting on her heels, heart thumping. For a few seconds she just stared into the dark space, unsure what she'd found. Then slowly she started digging. The soil was soft and dry, almost too easy to move. Within minutes, the outline of a small metal surface began to appear, rectangular, about the size of a briefcase. It was covered in rust and grime. Her fingers shook as she brushed away the last of the dirt. She could see now that it was a box, old and heavy. There was no lock, only two rusted latches. She pulled on them gently. One came loose right away. The other took some effort. When the lid finally lifted, a faint smell of old paper and oil filled the air. Inside were a few bundles wrapped in brown wax paper. She unwrapped one carefully. For a moment she couldn't breathe. It was a small painting, rough at the edges but beautiful. The colors were faded but still full of life, showing a quiet landscape with rolling hills and a stream. In the corner, just barely visible, was a signature. A.L. Her hands trembled. It had to be him, the painter, the one who built the house. She sat there for a long time, staring at the painting under the beam of her flashlight. There were more bundles inside the box, maybe a dozen. Each one looked carefully wrapped and hidden, as if someone wanted them safe. It was getting late and the shadows had grown long. She decided to bring the box inside and take a better look under the light. She placed it on the table, wiped her hands, and opened the rest of the packages one by one. Each contained a painting. Some were landscapes, others were portraits, and a few showed strange abstract shapes that reminded her of dreams or memories. None were signed with a full name, only those same two letters. The last one she opened was different. It showed a woman sitting near a window, her face turned toward the light. The details were soft, almost blurred, but the emotion was clear: calmness, loneliness, and hope all at once. At the bottom of that painting, she noticed something written faintly in pencil: "Keep them safe." Her throat tightened. Whoever this man was, he had hidden these paintings on purpose. Maybe he didn't want anyone to find them. Or maybe he hoped that one day someone would. That night she couldn't sleep. The box sat on the table beside her bed and she kept glancing at it, her mind racing with questions. Why were these paintings hidden? Who was the woman in the portrait? What happened to the artist? The next morning she decided to do some research. She took one of the paintings to a small art supply store in town. The owner, a kind older woman with silver hair, looked at it closely. "This is good work," she said, very detailed. "You said you found it in an old house?" "Yes," she replied. Under the floorboards, the woman nodded slowly. "The signature, A.L. That could be Arthur Lind. I remember reading about him once. He painted in this area many years ago, then he disappeared." She felt a chill. "Disappeared?" The woman shrugged. "That's what people said. One day he was gone and no one knew where he went. Some thought he moved to the city, others said he died alone. His paintings never sold much when he was alive, but a few collectors started talking about his work years later. If these are really his, they could be quite special." Her heart started to pound again. When she got home, she searched online for Arthur Linde. Old articles and scanned documents came up. He was indeed a painter from the 1940s and 50s, known for his peaceful landscapes and emotional portraits. Critics said his work captured the quiet truth of forgotten places. Then in 1954, he vanished. No record of death, no family, no known heirs. It was him. She couldn't believe it. The man who had once lived in her tiny $500 house was a missing artist, and his lost work had been sitting beneath the floor all this time. The next few days felt surreal. She spent hours examining each painting, cleaning them gently with soft cloths. They seemed to change in the light, soft in the morning, vivid by sunset. But she also started feeling something else, a strange responsibility. It didn't feel right to keep them hidden again. She thought about the note on the painting. Keep them safe. Maybe safe didn't mean buried. Maybe it meant cared for. Still, she didn't tell anyone else. Not yet. One evening, while taking photos of the artwork, she noticed something she hadn't before. On the back of one of the smaller canvases, faint pencil marks formed a few words. They were hard to read at first, but under a flashlight the message became clear. To whoever finds this, look beneath the light. She frowned. Beneath the light? She walked through the small house, flashlight in hand, shining it across the walls and ceiling. Then she remembered something. A loose ceiling panel above the old kitchen sink where an exposed light bulb hung. She climbed onto a chair and pushed gently at the panel. It moved slightly. Inside, she found a small envelope, yellowed with age. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper. It was a letter. The handwriting was elegant but shaky, written in black ink. If you are reading this, it means the house has found another soul. My name is Arthur Lind. I built this place as my refuge when the world grew too loud. The paintings are pieces of my life, memories, moments, faces I loved. I hid them when I knew my time here was ending. They were never meant to be sold, only to be remembered. Take care of them, and perhaps they'll take care of you. She stared at the letter for a long time. It felt like he was speaking directly to her across decades. She whispered softly, "I'll take care of them." And for the first time since moving the house, she felt like it truly belonged to her, not as a piece of property, but as a shared story between two lives that had somehow met through time. Days later, she began restoring the frames. She used gentle oils to bring back the wood's shine and replaced old nails with new ones. Each time she finished a painting, she hung it on the wall, and slowly, the little house transformed into something magical. Visitors who came by to drop off supplies or just say hello would stop and stare. They didn't know the story, only that the artwork felt alive. One neighbor told her, "There's something peaceful about this place now. It feels like it remembers." She smiled, knowing they were right. The house did remember, and though she didn't yet realize it, her discovery was about to reach far beyond her quiet little home, because soon, word of the hidden paintings and the mystery, artist who vanished decades ago, would begin to spread, and the small house she bought for $500 would become the center of a story the world couldn't stop talking about. It wasn't long before word spread. At first, it was just a few people, friends, neighbors, people who had been by the house when she was fixing it up. They started to ask more questions about the paintings. Some were curious, some just amazed, and a few seemed almost desperate to know more. She never expected any of it. She had bought the house as a place to call her own, a little refuge. She never thought it would turn into some sort of mystery. But now, as the days passed, the paintings seemed to take on a life of their own. One evening, after a long day of painting and restoring, she received a call. The voice on the other end was familiar, but the tone was different. "It's the painting," the woman said. "I heard you found a collection of Arthur Lind's works. Is that true?" She was quiet for a moment, unsure how to respond. She had no idea how this person had heard about it so quickly. She hadn't shown the paintings to anyone except a few neighbors and an art supply store owner. I don't know how you heard about it, but yes, I found his work. A lot of it." The voice on the other end of the line grew more urgent. "You have to be careful. There's a lot of interest in those pieces. You need to be careful who you trust." The warning sent a chill down her spine. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name's Emily. I'm an art historian. Arthur Lind. His work is rare, and it's getting more valuable as people learn about it. I can help you understand what you've found. I think you should be careful about what happens next." The call ended abruptly, leaving her with more questions than answers. She sat there for a long while, the weight of the conversation sinking in. She had known that the paintings were important, but she hadn't realized how important. She thought about the letter she had found, the one written by Arthur Lind himself. It had said to take care of the paintings, but had it meant something else? Were there people out there who had been searching for these works all this time? It didn't take long for the interest to grow. The next morning, a man appeared at her door. He was in his 50s, well-dressed, with an air of confidence that made her wary. He introduced himself as a gallery owner from the city, and he claimed to have heard about her discovery through a mutual contact. "I'm sure you've heard of Arthur Lind," he said. "His work has become highly sought after in the art world. I have collectors who would pay top dollar for those paintings." She hesitated. The idea of selling the paintings had never crossed her mind. They were more than just art to her now. They were pieces of a forgotten story, a history that had been left behind and was now in her hands. "I'm not looking to sell them," she said firmly. The man smiled, but there was something in his eyes that seemed calculating. I understand. But you do know that keeping them here just sitting in a small house, that won't do them justice. They deserve to be seen. I could help you get them into the right hands. The right museum, the right buyers? She shook her head. No, I don't think that's the right thing to do. The man didn't press any further. He left his business card with her and left just as quickly as he had arrived, but the feeling of unease lingered long after. That afternoon, she contacted Emily, the art historian, to ask for advice. They spoke for nearly an hour, and Emily explained that Arthur Lynd's work was regarded as missing for decades. It was believed that his paintings were lost to time, possibly destroyed or left behind when he disappeared. The discovery of these works was unprecedented. I can't stress enough how important this is, Emily said. The art world is watching. People want to see these pieces. If you're serious about preserving them, you need to think about how to protect them. I'd be happy to help you, but it's going to take more than just a simple display in a house. This is a historic find. The idea of turning the paintings into some sort of public exhibition made her uneasy. She wasn't interested in fame or money. She had only wanted to keep the house and the paintings safe. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that keeping the paintings locked away in her small home wasn't fair to them. She agreed to meet with Emily the next day. When they met, Emily was everything she had imagined: smart, passionate, and clearly very familiar with the world of art. She was excited when she saw the paintings for the first time. "This is Arthur Lynd?" Emily asked in awe, carefully inspecting one of the pieces. "This is incredible. I've seen his work before, but nothing like this. His style was always so understated, so simple. But there's an emotional depth here I haven't seen in his other pieces. You've found a hidden treasure." The art historian's enthusiasm made her feel both proud and a little overwhelmed. Emily spoke about Linda's life, how he had been reclusive, how his art had been overshadowed by bigger names during his time. She explained that his work had been largely forgotten until recent years, when collectors began to see its value. And now, with the discovery of these hidden paintings, Linda's work had the potential to reshape the way people viewed 20th century American art. "I know this is a lot to take in," Emily said after a long pause, "but this is no longer just about the paintings. This is about preserving a piece of history. We can't just let these disappear again. There's a real opportunity here to honor Linda's legacy." Her mind swirled with the possibilities. That evening, she went back to the tiny house and sat in the middle of the living room, surrounded by the paintings. They didn't feel like possessions. They felt like something more, something that belonged to the world, not just to her. She had found them by chance, but now she realized that keeping them hidden away wasn't the right thing to do. She couldn't allow these pieces of history to be lost again. The next day, she contacted a local museum to see if they would be willing to help preserve the paintings. The director, after hearing the details of her discovery, was eager to get involved. "You're doing the right thing," the director told her. "These pieces belong in a place where they can be shared, where people can learn about Arthur Lynd and the time he lived in. We can give them the attention and care they deserve." A few days later, the paintings were carefully packed up and transported to the museum. The small house that had once been her sanctuary now felt empty. She stood in the doorway looking at the empty walls where the paintings had once hung. It was hard to let go, but she knew it was the right choice. Over the following weeks, the paintings were displayed in the museum, and the story of Arthur Lynd's forgotten work began to capture the public's imagination. News outlets reported on the discovery, and collectors from around the world expressed interest. The small, quiet house where the paintings had been found became a part of the legend. But as the story grew, so did the questions. Who was Arthur Lynd? Why had he hidden these paintings? And why had he left the house and his art time behind? The mystery remained unsolved. But what mattered now was that his work had been found, and his legacy would live on. She continued to visit the museum where the paintings were displayed. Each time she saw them, she felt a quiet satisfaction, not because of any fame or recognition, but because she knew she had done the right thing. And though the tiny house had no more paintings to hide, she couldn't help but feel that it had changed her forever. The discovery of those paintings and the lost art of a forgotten painter had led her down a path she never expected. It had opened her eyes to the power of history, the importance of preserving the past, and the quiet connections that run through time. It was a reminder that sometimes The most valuable things in life aren't the ones we seek out. They're the ones we stumble upon by accident, hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be found. The days after the paintings were displayed in the museum felt like a whirlwind. At first, the attention was exciting. People from all over the world came to see Arthur Lynd's work. Reporters, collectors, art enthusiasts, they all wanted a piece of the story. They spoke about the discovery like it was the find of the century. The small, quiet house where it all began had become a kind of landmark, even if no one visited it directly anymore. She tried to focus on the good aspects of it. The museum was caring for the paintings, and Linda's work was finally getting the recognition it deserved. But the attention, the constant questions, it was starting to feel too much. She had no idea what she was supposed to do now. One morning, a phone call rattled her. "Hello, is this the woman who found the paintings?" The voice on the other end was deep, almost too formal. "Yes, this is," she replied cautiously. "We're calling from the auction house down in the city. We've been following the story, and we think we can offer you a very generous deal for the collection. We have buyers ready." Her heart skipped. "I'm not interested in selling them." "Think about it," the voice said, smoother now. "This could be life-changing money for you. And Linda's paintings, well, they're only going to keep going up in value. This is a rare opportunity." She felt her pulse quicken. Money was something she had never thought of when she found the paintings. The whole reason she had kept them was because they were important, not because they could make her rich. "I'm not interested," she repeated firmly, her voice more steady now. "I just want to make sure these paintings are treated with respect." The call ended soon after, but the offer lingered in her mind for days. It wasn't long before more offers came in. The museum kept in touch, thanking her for the discovery and praising her for her role in preserving Linda's legacy. But as the buzz around the paintings grew, so did the pressure. The collectors, the galleries, the auction houses, they all saw this as an opportunity to make money. The paintings, once hidden away in the tiny house, had now become commodities. It wasn't just about the art anymore. It was about the money, the prestige, and the value that these paintings could bring. The woman began to feel more isolated. She had opened a door she couldn't close, and now the whole world seemed to be watching, waiting to see what would happen next. She wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. She had never asked for any of this. Then one day, a familiar face appeared in front of her door. It was Emily, the art historian. "I've been trying to get in touch with you," Emily said, her tone urgent. "There's something you need to know." The woman invited her inside, hoping this visit would bring clarity. Emily sat down across from her, her expression serious. "I've been doing more research into Linda's life, and I've come across something unsettling." The woman felt her stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" Emily leaned forward. "There's a reason Arthur Lynd disappeared. It wasn't just because he was a recluse. There are rumors, dark rumors, that he had made enemies. Some people think he was involved in something more dangerous than just painting." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I don't know everything, but I found references to him being involved with a group of people who were obsessed with rare, valuable art, pieces that they wanted to control, that they wanted to hide away for themselves." Linda was part of that world. The woman's heart pounded in her chest. She didn't want to believe it. The man whose paintings she had uncovered, whose legacy she had been trying to preserve, had ties to something dark. Emily continued, "I'm not saying he was a criminal, but there are hints, connections, things that don't add up. I think this is why he disappeared. If people knew what he was involved in, it could ruin his reputation, maybe even the value of his paintings. And now someone might be looking for those paintings. Someone who doesn't care about their artistic value, only about the control they can have." The woman felt the walls closing in. She had tried to do the right thing by bringing the paintings to light. But now everything felt complicated. Was she putting herself at risk? Was there something she didn't understand? "I don't know what to do," she whispered. Emily sat back, her face softening. "I understand. But you need to be careful. People will do anything to get what they want. If they think these paintings could lead to something bigger, something more valuable than just the art, they'll stop at nothing to get them." The next few days were tense. The woman didn't know who to trust anymore. Emily's warning had planted a seed of doubt. She thought about going to the police, but she wasn't sure what she would say. How could she explain something that seemed so uncertain, so vague? She also kept receiving calls more than ever. Gallery owners, investors, people who claimed to be experts on Lynd's work, all offering deals, pushing her to make a decision. It was overwhelming. Then one afternoon, a new visitor arrived. This one wasn't like the others. The man was older, dressed in a well-worn leather jacket, and his eyes held a certain intensity. He didn't introduce himself at first. He simply stood at her doorstep and waited for her to speak. "Can I help you?" she asked. The man nodded, his voice low. "You don't know me, but I know you. I've been following your story." About the paintings, her heart skipped again. "What do you want?" "I'm not here to buy the paintings," he said, "but I need to talk to you. There are things you don't understand, things you need to know about Arthur Lind, about the people who want those paintings." "Who are you?" she demanded, stepping back. "I'm someone who's been tracking Linda's legacy for a long time. I know about the groups he was involved with, the ones that had interest in the rarest art. You might be in danger. There are people who think you have something they want, and they won't stop until they get it." His words sent a shiver down her spine. "I don't know what to do," she said, her voice trembling. "First, you need to understand that Linda wasn't just hiding his paintings. He was hiding something much bigger, something more dangerous, and you're now in the middle of it." The woman felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She had never expected any of this. The paintings had seemed like a simple treasure, a hidden piece of history to be shared with the world. But now the truth was coming out, and it was more complicated than she could have ever imagined. As the man continued talking, she realized something important. The discovery of the paintings was only the beginning. There were forces at play that she didn't fully understand yet, and those forces would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. The days following the man's visit were unsettling. The idea that the paintings were part of something darker, something dangerous, consumed her thoughts. She couldn't shake the feeling that everything had spiraled far beyond her control. She had wanted to protect the paintings, to ensure their rightful place in the world. But now she wasn't so sure anymore. She spent the next few days isolated, unsure who to trust. Every phone call, every knock at the door made her jump. The pressure was mounting. She began to regret ever having found the paintings. She had thought they would change her life in a good way, bring her peace and a sense of purpose. But now they felt like a curse. The man who had warned her about the danger surrounding the paintings never came back, but the unease he left behind lingered like a shadow. She found herself constantly looking over her shoulder, wondering if someone was watching. Then, one evening, she received a letter, hand-delivered without a return address. She opened it slowly, her hands trembling as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant, sharp, and precise. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Arthur Lind's paintings are just the beginning. There is more you don't know. If you care about your safety, you need to come to the old warehouse by the docks. Come alone. Bring the paintings." Her heart raced as she read the words. The letter wasn't signed, but it was clear. Whoever had sent it knew exactly what she had found. They wanted the paintings. They wanted more than just art. And they were willing to do whatever it took to get them. The thought of going to the warehouse made her stomach churn. But what choice did she have? The letter was a threat, plain and simple. Whoever these people were, they had already shown they were not afraid to be dangerous. She couldn't let them take the paintings, not without knowing why they were so important. The next day, she packed the paintings carefully. She didn't want to risk anything happening to them, even if she was uncertain of what she might face. She had no idea who these people were or what they really wanted. As dusk fell, she drove to the warehouse. The air was thick with fog, the streetlights casting long shadows on the ground. The warehouse loomed ahead, old and decrepit, a place where secrets were kept and forgotten things went to die. She parked her car far enough away so she wouldn't be seen and walked the last few blocks on foot. When she reached the entrance, she hesitated. The door was old, rusted, and slightly ajar, as if inviting her in. Her heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct told her to turn back, to drive away and forget about everything. But she had come this far. She had to know what was going on. She pushed the door open, stepping inside. The warehouse was silent, the only sound her own breathing. The smell of dust and decay filled the air. She moved carefully, trying not to make a sound, the painting still wrapped in protective cloths under her arm. Suddenly a voice broke the silence. "You came." She froze, her body tense. From the shadows emerged a figure. A man dressed in dark clothing, his face hidden in the dim light. "I had no choice," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. You left me no choice. The man didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face as though he was reading her every thought. Then he nodded slowly, as if satisfied with what he saw. You don't understand the significance of these paintings, do you? He asked. I thought they were just valuable art, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know there was anything more. The man smirked, stepping forward and reaching out to take the paintings from her hands. She hesitated, but then let go. They're much more than that, he said. These paintings, especially the one that was hidden in the attic, they're the key to something much bigger. Linda wasn't just painting pictures. He was hiding messages, clues to a treasure far more valuable than anything you can imagine, and you've already unlocked part of it. She felt a chill run through her. What kind of treasure? The man paused, as if choosing his words carefully. A treasure that's been hidden for decades. A treasure that certain people who will stop at nothing to control it, have been searching for. And now you're involved. Whether you like it or not, you're a part of it. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was saying. Treasure, hidden messages? She had simply found some paintings. She had no idea they could be connected to something so dark. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice trembling. What's in those paintings that's so important? The man smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. You'll find out soon enough. These paintings were never meant to be seen by the public. They were created to hide something that could change everything. And now that you've brought them to light, you've drawn the attention of the wrong people. The room suddenly felt smaller, colder. He took a step closer. You're not the first person to get tangled in Linda's legacy. People have died because of these paintings. People have been murdered to keep the secret buried, and now you're in danger. Her breath caught in her throat. What do you want from me? We need you to find the rest of the paintings, the man said. The ones Linda hid away. The ones that lead to the treasure. I don't know where the other paintings are, she said quickly. I only found the ones in the house. I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't seem to believe her. You might not know now, he said, but you will. You're already in too deep. It's just a matter of time before you figure it out. The paintings have a pattern. They lead somewhere, and you'll follow the trail whether you want to or not. She didn't want to believe it. She had no interest in treasure hunts or secret societies. She had only wanted to find peace in the paintings. But now she was trapped in something much bigger than herself. The man turned toward the shadows. I'll be in touch, he said, his voice cold. Don't try to hide. You can't run from this. She stood there for a moment, unsure of what to do next. The man had left, disappearing into the dark corners of the warehouse. The paintings were now just a symbol of something far more complicated than she could have ever imagined. She was no longer just an innocent bystander. She was part of a story she hadn't asked to be in, and it was only getting darker. As she left the warehouse, clutching the paintings once more, she realized she had no choice but to follow the trail. She had to find the rest of the paintings, for her own safety, for the world's safety, and for the legacy of Arthur Lind, whose secret would never be fully understood. Not until it was too late. The question was no longer about what she could do with the paintings. The question was, could she survive what was coming next?